What stressors or worries or fears are you facing today?
Yeah, that are maybe consuming your mind, consuming your every thought, where you're just like overcome with the crap up here, right?
Yeah, because it can happen so easily. You can wake up and your mind starts, if you're anything like we are.
Yeah, which you probably are.
Your mind just starts with all these things, and it's like pretty soon you're anxious and you can feel your stomach getting in a knot, and you go like, this is ridiculous.
Or like hitting the go live button on here and not knowing exactly when the camera starts, and then the camera shows up and your hair's all out of place, right? Like our brains just go wild with all of these things.
That's right.
And I mean, that's just a silly little care, but we all have lots of worries, lots of cares, lots of stress. And like in our world today, we have like more depression, more anxiety, more loneliness, I think, than in any other time in history.
I know. It's
and
crazy.
Like our problems maybe today are different than they used to be because we have more technology. We have, work from home situations. We went through COVID. All of these things are different maybe than they were like 50 years ago. But the truth of the Bible is still the same.
That hasn't changed.
Right. That we are called to cast our cares. We're called to renew our minds. We're called to, like, all of these things. Think about things that are true and noble and honorable and righteous and of good rapport. And yet here we are, sitting in our worries and cares all day long.
That's right.
Like, I know I do.
So I'm going to read right now. Oh, it's gone. So it'll be a second here. Anyway, it is 1 Peter 5:7, casting all your anxiety before the Lord. And so what does that mean?
Well, I think before that verse, like a little bit higher up in that chapter, it talks about how the devil roars around like a prowling lion. I always say that backwards, did I say it right?
Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour.
Yeah, and I think he's devouring us in our minds, one little worry, one little care at a time that we don't let go of, that we hold on to, and then he just takes us down one by one by one by one. It's this like slow
it's a drip
step.
method.
Yeah, the drip method. That's right. We'll coin it for him. Yeah. It's the drip method that just like slowly over time wears us down to the point where we're like barely functional because
the worry. And in fact, the drip method came up in my mind because, my husband and I were having a discussion, and he wants a new mirror in our bathroom. It's really kind of funny. I like our mirror in our bathroom because
when does the man care about them?
I know we keep coming to the same conclusion, but then he'll bring it up again and bring it up again. And I said to him the other day, I just looked at him, I said, "Oh, you're using the drip method on me." So
one slow drip at a time, and slowly it will wear you down, right?
Yeah, one drip on a whole big, mound of ice.
Yeah,
doesn't get rid of the ice in a day or in a minute, but it does over time. And so that's like the devil. He gets our mind on the same worry.
Dad isn't like the devil, but no. The method being used.
That's right.
Anyway, just
but yeah,
joke.
It's like the devil does use our worries. And if you have a worry about relationships or about your child,
or about finances, or about
your parents, your aging parents, or there's so many things. I mean, relationships, you're lonely. Like the list goes on and on and on. But that worry, if it comes to your mind, how many times a day is it coming to your mind? That's the drip method. And in this passage, it talks about what we have to do. It says, resist the devil, resist him, standing firm in our faith. So today we just want to talk about the worries that we have, because we all have them.
Yeah, we do. And I think we wake up and it's the first thing we think about. And then throughout the day, we might get distracted by other things, but then right away that is back at the forefront of our minds. And then, we continue on through the day and it's the last thing we think about as we go to bed. What is your thought life? Where is it? Is it in the toilet?
Yeah. And if you're like me, it's like, I pray and I give it to God. I say, take this. I'm surrendering it. I want to give it to you. I don't want to worry. I want to trust you. I want to have the faith. And, it's like, okay, breathe. I can breathe now. But then it's like 5 minutes later, it's back. And I've grabbed a hold of it again. And that's what we need to let go of. We don't want to grab it back. So what can we do to actually surrender it and actually leave it at the foot of the cross.
Yeah, well, and I think even that passage, so the one we keep referring to is 1 Peter 5, a whole bunch of different verses in there we've been talking about, but
it does say, in due time, he will help us. Like it says, and the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory, after you have suffered a little while, he will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it also talks about, like we said, the verse 1 Peter 5:7, cast your cares on him.
Yeah.
And so, how do we do that? Today, what we thought we would do, and if you've been watching us for a while, you might remember this exercise, but we thought we would talk about a really tangible thing that we can do to actually give our worries to God, to cast our cares on him, because sometimes those really tangible things can help us, because it's just more visual and it's an actual action that we are doing to let it go.
Yeah, and then we remember it more.
Mm-hmm.
Like it sticks in our minds that we have let it go.
Yeah. So today we have for you, dun 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 dun, the God box.
So a God box, what is it?
Well, it's nothing that terribly special.
No, it's just a box.
Yeah, you can go buy one at your local dollar store and paint it yourself, which is what you've done.
Yeah, and they have, like, the dollar stores usually have these little boxes that are about $2 or whatever.
Well, the price tag's even on the bottom of that one still.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay, this one's $3. And then paint it. You don't even have to paint it. But the more you do so that you see it and remember it, like I see this every day in my office.
Yeah.
And I've got prayer requests in here. Worries.
But alternatively, if you want the free version, get a Kleenex box.
Yeah, and we've got that for you too. All you got to do is empty the Kleenex. You don't even have to empty the Kleenex. Just stuff your worry in here.
Or get a Tupperware container. Like, be creative, right?
Yeah,
if you want to do a nice thing and go get a box and decorate it, do that. But don't complicate it either, right? To the point where you don't do it.
That's right.
Right? There's lots of box style things right in your home that you can use to act as a God box, so that you can actually write your worries and cares down on a piece of paper, write it down, be specific, and then physically put it into the God box as a reminder to yourself that you are giving it away to God. It does not belong to you anymore, right? The problem still probably belongs to you, that you might have to manage and deal with and work through, but you're giving the cares to God.
Yeah, so this whole total little action, this little, I don't know what it is, it's like something that will stick in your mind. Right now, get a piece of paper and write down your worry, because we've been told that sometimes just writing it down makes it seem less worrisome. Mm-hmm. Like, define what the problem actually is, because what's going on in your mind might not actually be the issue. Like, you might think, oh, I'm so stressed about this, but when you write it down, you might think of an idea, or you might think of something that, oh, I can do this, and that will take the worry away. Or, just different things. I think
the other thing too is that, like, when we write it down, we can so often recognize that it's out of our control, right? There is nothing we can do about it, because we're worried about something that is totally outside of our control. And so we have to give that away, because if we just ruminate on that all day, all night, then we're just creating anxiety within ourselves that brings us down. Sometimes our worries and cares are things that we actually do have to manage and work through, right? Like, if you're having a conflict in a relationship, you might be worried and stressed out about it. But you're still going to have to manage that conflict and maybe deal with it and maybe have a hard conversation. But sometimes just writing it down can help us distinguish, like, am I worried and stressed out about something that is completely outside of my control? Like, I'll share an example with you. I have pretty bad anxiety about getting sick. And you may or may not relate to that at all. In fact, most people do not. And in fact, for me, it is like 100% about vomiting, okay? And this is not something that I talk super regularly about, because it's kind of embarrassing, to be honest.
Because logically, it's not
that it's a silly thing to worry about, right?
But that's the logic.
Right, and the anxiety part just goes crazy in my mind, right? And, like, I have small kids, and so it's like everywhere we go, everything I do, I'm like, oh, are they gonna throw up? Are they gonna throw up? Are they gonna throw up? Like, it's crazy, it's nuts, right? and it's a problem in my life. And so often when I actually like write it down and put it in the God box or pray about it or give it to God, I'm like, you know what? It's going to happen at some point, right? Like my kids will throw up. It has happened.
That's right.
And at the end of the day, there's nothing that I can do to like control when it happens, when it doesn't happen, right? Our bodies just get sick. We don't know when the germs are around, and we can't do much about it, right? We just have to like live
and give it to God.
And so like that's one of those things that when I actually write it down, I can go like, I can't do anything about this, right? There is absolutely nothing I can do to make my kids not throw up. Like that's why, like that just even sounds silly to say, right? Because you can't stop that. If you're going to get sick, you're going to get sick. And so writing it down and giving it to God is a big part of my day every day. And then I think the other thing that we really wanted to talk about in regards to all this today is like when we think about worry, when we think about anxiety, often we think that the opposite of anxiety and worry is peace. But I was listening to something a while back, you might have heard me say this before, and truthfully, the opposite of anxiety is trust, not peace. Because when we are anxious about something, we have no trust that it's going to work out how we want, right? Or how we're hoping for. And so like if we use this example of me being anxious about getting sick, well, when I'm anxious about that, I'm not trusting that everything will be okay, right? I'm not trusting that God is still in control. I'm worried about it and I have no peace about it, but what I need is trust that God is in control, that everything's going to be okay. And so I think as you work through your own stressors and worries and anxieties in your life, like what is it that you need to lean into? You need to lean into trust.
Yeah, and I just want to say, sometimes God doesn't, like, we expect when we pray that God's going to answer and take our worries away immediately. We have to trust and let go of the worry. But sometimes God doesn't remove the situation. Sometimes God doesn't just immediately, like, he doesn't just say it right then and then we're out of it, we're healed from it, or it's gone. Sometimes he helps us walk through the journey of our anxiety and our worries. Like, we need to surrender it and trust him, but then we walk through it together with him. And so I think another question we have to ask ourselves is, what is the lesson that we can learn as we walk through this challenge, as we walk through the trial that we're going through? Because like the scripture says, we will suffer for a little while. And we're not suffering like some people in third world countries. They're really suffering. But these anxieties are still real. Like your anxiety, like you're talking about right now, it's a real thing in Casey's life. And so if you are struggling with an anxiety that's real like that, it's really nice to hear someone else talking about it, to share that you're not the only one. And there is things that we can do to help us live with and surrender the anxiety so that we can keep continually and resist the devil, because he is playing on your mind.
Well, I think the other thing too is that when we are struggling with all of these things, it's an opportunity for us to build resiliency.
That's right.
And we don't think about our problems like that most of the time. I know I don't. But, like to be mentally tough, to be resilient is a really valuable skill to have in life.
Oh, is it ever?
Right? Because even just this last week, my daughter is in swimming lessons and she was so scared to go to swimming lessons this last week because the teacher the week before had been trying to get her to jump off without helping. And she was so nervous about that, and she was scared and she was crying and she wouldn't let me go. And I was talking to another mom there, and it's like, my first instinct is to like take her out and say, okay, well, we'll just go home today then. But
yeah, that's what you feel like you want to do.
We can't do that because we have to teach our children skills to be resilient. And I feel like that's lacking in our world today. We just coddle everything. We coddle all of the kids. We coddle ourselves, right? Rather than build resiliency in, like, I mean, we can only do it in ourselves, really, right? But think about all of these things as an opportunity to be resilient, because the Bible also tells us that we are more than conquerors. And so we have to learn how to like take the hard things in our life and go, you know what? God is putting me through this right now. And it ultimately is for his glory. And it ultimately is going to help you grow as a person if you are willing to look at it through that set of lenses. And like the fruits of the Spirit, like we grow and we get more rooted in those things when we're going through hard times, when we do actually surrender it, when we do put our trust in God rather than like just let it defeat us.
Yeah, and when you're saying that, it reminds me of this talk that Joyce Meyer had about, if you know Joyce Meyer at all, you know she went through huge stressors, trials, suffering with abuse. And she says that God took her through it. He didn't remove her from the situation because she learned so many lessons, and she is through her ministry has been able to share and help so many people through what she went through. She said she wouldn't change what she went through because her experience, her trials of God being with her through the journey has helped her in her ministry now. And so I'm going to say, even as Casey struggles with anxiety in this way, going through it, persevering, is going to help so many people who are also struggling with anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think as you today, because we want you to do this today, go make your God box, go get your God box and write down your worries and cares and like pray through them and ask God to work through you, through your worries and stressors, because he can mold you and refine you through the fire as you cast your cares on him, right? And that doesn't mean that they're going to instantly go away. No. But it does mean that we can trust that God is still in control.
But we want to do this act with you. So if you have a piece of paper, write down what your worry or your fear or your anxiety, however you want to label it, write it down. I've written mine down, and you don't have to tell anyone because God knows. God knows what it is. Casey's just shared her anxiety. But what you're going to do with this piece of paper, and Casey's going to do this with hers, is I like to fold it up or scrumple it up or whatever you want to do, and you actually put it in the God box. Now, it's surrendered. It's there.
It no longer belongs to us.
That's right. We have given it to God. It's in the God box. So when that worry comes back to your mind, just think about this. Are you going to reach into the God box and take out your worry and hold on to it again? When you think of it like that, it's like, no, I've already given that to God. I'm going to leave it with God.
Yeah, when you go back in and take it out, it's like taking a cinder block and sticking it in your backpack so you can walk around with all this extra weight on your shoulders. Yeah. And why would we ever want to do that?
We don't want the weight of the world or our anxieties or fears on our shoulder.
Yeah.
We want to give it to God.
Exactly. So we hope that is an encouragement to you today. We know that so many of you who we talk to, who we know are struggling through your own set of circumstances. We all are, every one of us.
Yeah, every one
right?
of us.
Like, I think every one of us wakes up and goes, "Whoo boy, okay."
Yeah.
Right? There's stuff in everybody's lives. But let's be women who we are building resiliency, because when we are, like, look at Joyce Myers, look at how her experience has allowed her to help millions of people. And we can be the same. We don't have to help millions, but your experience can help somebody else.
And if you help one person, you are doing what God is asking you to do.
Exactly. So I think if you're still here watching, we would love to ask you to subscribe and comment and give this video a thumbs up.
In fact, even share it. If you know someone who struggles with anxiety or has a worry or a fear, please share our videos so that we can get this information out, because we do need to help each other with our fears and anxieties and help other people give their worries to God.
Exactly. And Margie, we saw your comment, but we couldn't read it on the small screen that we're on, so we'll have to comment on it after. But anyways, thanks for being here. And Margie, thank you for always commenting and supporting us. We truly appreciate it.
So as always, we like to end our videos by saying, remember, you are a beautiful woman, chosen for greatness.
And we believe in you.